Accept me as your concubine. I will do anything you ask, pleaded the poor mother. The sun was just beginning to rise over the small village of Lianhua, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold. Birds chirped in the distance, their songs full of life and hope, but for May, a poor widow living on the edge of the village, hope felt like a distant memory. Her small wooden house leaned slightly to one side, its roof patched with old straw and cloth. The wind whistled through the cracks, and the morning chill made her shiver. She wrapped her thin shawl tightly around her shoulders, thinking about the day ahead. Her daughter, little Liane, was still asleep on a straw mat, her face peaceful despite the empty stomach that often made her cry during the night. May looked at her sleeping child and felt a pang in her chest. Every day was a battle to find enough food to fill Liane's belly, enough warmth to keep her from catching the cold, enough hope to protect her from the hardships that life seemed determined to throw at them. May had worked in the rice fields, tended to neighbors' chores, and even sold handmade trinkets in the village market. But no matter how hard she tried, it never seemed to be enough. Today, however, was different. Word had spread through the village like wildfire. The wealthy landlord of the town, a man named Lord Wen, was searching for a concubine. It was whispered that he wanted someone who was humble, obedient, and willing to devote herself entirely to his household. Most villagers were shocked, and some were even amused. To them, this was a sign of luck for some young girl from a respectable family. But for May, it was a lifeline, a chance to save herself and, more importantly, her daughter. She sat on the edge of the mat, holding Liane's tiny hands. Her heart ached as she thought of what she was about to do, but she pushed the fear aside.
"I have no choice, my little one," she whispered softly. "I will do whatever it takes to give you a better life."
"Just wait for me. I promise everything will be okay."
Liane stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep, and May felt tears prick at her eyes. She swallowed them quickly.
There was no time for sorrow. She had to act.
May gathered a few belongings, a small bundle of clothes, some dried rice wrapped in cloth, and a tiny keepsake, a wooden pendant that had belonged to her late husband. She took one last look at the modest home that had sheltered her and Liane through so many storms.
It was all she had ever known, yet she felt a strange sense of resolve. The world outside was vast and unknown, but she was determined to face it head-on.
The path to Lord Wen's mansion was long and uneven, winding through rice paddies and narrow dirt roads. May walked slowly, stopping occasionally to rest, her feet aching from the rough terrain.
Villagers watched her pass, some with pity in their eyes, others with quiet curiosity. None of them could understand the weight of her decision. They did not know the fear, the desperation, and the love for her child that drove her forward. As the village faded behind her, the sight of the mansion grew in the distance.
It was unlike anything May had ever seen. The walls were tall and strong, painted white with intricate carvings along the roof. The gates were wide, made of polished wood, with golden accents that glinted in the morning sun. Guards stood at attention, their expressions stern, and the air around the mansion seemed heavy with power and authority.
May's heart raced. She had entered a world far beyond her own, a world where one wrong step could ruin everything.
She approached the gates and bowed deeply, her hands trembling slightly. The guards eyed her warily.
"Who are you?"
one of them asked, his voice sharp.
I am May,"
she said softly, her voice steady despite the fear swirling in her chest.
"I have come to see Lord Wen."
I wish to serve him. I am willing to do anything he asks."
The guards exchanged glances, clearly unsure what to make of this humble, worn woman standing before them.
One finally spoke. "You must wait."
"Lord Wen will see you, but only if he is interested. Do not make demands. Do not overstep your place."
May nodded eagerly, bowing again.
"I understand."
"I only ask for the chance to speak with him. I beg for this opportunity, no more." Time seemed to stretch endlessly as she waited in the courtyard. The scent of blooming flowers mixed with the faint aroma of incense from the mansion, creating an atmosphere both calming and intimidating. May could hear the rustle of silk and faint laughter from within the mansion walls. She straightened her back and took a deep breath, reminding herself why she had come.
She was not here for herself. She was here for Lien, her daughter, who deserved warmth, safety, and a life that May could no longer provide on her own.
Finally, the large wooden doors opened, and a tall man stepped out. Lord Wen. His presence was commanding, his robes flowing like liquid silk, his eyes sharp and observing. May felt a shiver run down her spine. She bowed even lower, her forehead nearly touching the ground.
"My lord,"
she said, her voice small but full of determination.
"I am May. I beg for your mercy. Accept me as your concubine, and I will do anything you ask. I only wish to serve and to protect my child."
Lord Wen studied her quietly, his eyes flicking over her simple clothing, her worn hands and her trembling form. There was no beauty to boast of, no wealth, no status. Yet there was something in her gaze, a mixture of fear, courage, and unwavering love for her child, that made him pause. He said nothing at first, simply observing her as if weighing the weight of her words against the odds of her survival. The courtyard felt silent, except for the distant sound of water flowing in a garden fountain. May held her breath, waiting for his judgment. The fear of rejection, of failure, was almost unbearable, but she refused to let it show. She reminded herself of Lian sleeping alone at home, of the nights spent crying over empty rice bowls. This was her chance, her only chance. She had to seize it, no matter the cost. Finally, Lord Wen spoke. "You are brave to come here on your own," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Many would not have dared."
"You risk much by offering yourself in this way. Why should I accept you, May?"
May lifted her head slightly, her eyes meeting his directly.
"Because I have nothing left to lose," she said. "Because I am willing to endure whatever is asked of me.
And because I have someone I must protect. My daughter, she is all I have in this world. If I can secure her future by serving you faithfully, then I will do so without question. I ask not for comfort or riches. I ask only for a chance." Lord Wen considered her words, his sharp eyes softening for just a moment. There was a flicker of respect, perhaps even curiosity. Few people spoke to him with such honesty, such raw, unwavering determination. May, who seemed fragile and powerless, had shown strength and courage that many stronger women in the town would not have dared to reveal. He waved his hand, signaling the guards to allow her in. "Very well, May," he said. "You may enter.
But know this, obedience will be tested. Life in this house is not easy, and you will face challenges that you cannot yet imagine. If you fail, there will be consequences. If you succeed, you may earn a place here, but it will not come without effort. Do you understand?"
"I understand, my lord," May replied, her voice steady.
Though her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, she felt a strange sense of calm. She had taken the first step toward a life that could protect her daughter, a life that could give her hope again. As she stepped past the grand gates, leaving the familiar dirt paths of her village behind, May felt a mixture of fear and resolve. The mansion was vast and unfamiliar, filled with unknown faces, rules, and expectations. Yet, for the first time in a long time, she felt the spark of hope. She had made her plea, and now the path forward depended on courage, endurance, and unwavering love for her child. The sun climbed higher, casting its warm light over the courtyard. May inhaled deeply, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. She knew life in Lord Wen's mansion would not be easy. She would have to prove herself, to endure hardship, and to navigate a world completely foreign to her. But for Lian, she would endure anything. And so, with her head held high and her heart full of determination, May took her first steps into a new life, a life that held both danger and possibility, fear and hope, despair and perhaps, one day, redemption. May stepped into the mansion, her eyes wide with awe. The hall was larger than any house she had ever seen, its high ceilings carved with delicate patterns, and sunlight spilling in through tall windows. The floors gleamed with polished wood, and the scent of incense floated in the air, giving everything a calm but serious atmosphere. Servants moved quietly, carrying trays of food or cleaning the floors. They glanced at May with curiosity, some whispering to one another and others glancing at her with suspicion. May lowered her gaze, bowing slightly as she walked, careful not to make any mistakes. A young woman, probably a maid, approached her cautiously. "You are May, I assume?" she asked softly, her voice polite but wary.
May nodded, her hands folded in front of her.
Yes, I am.
"I have come to serve Lord Wen,"
she said, keeping her voice gentle and respectful. The maid studied her for a moment before nodding.
"Follow me,"
she said, leading May through the long corridors. The mansion seemed endless, with doors on either side and rooms filled with fine furniture and decorations. Every step made May feel both intimidated and determined. She had entered a world far beyond her humble village, and every corner seemed to remind her of the gap between her old life and the life she hoped to build for her daughter. Finally, they arrived at a room near the back of the mansion. The maid stopped and gestured toward a small, simple chamber.
"This will be your room for now," she said. "It is not as grand as the other rooms, but it is comfortable enough. You may rest here, and when Lord Wen calls, you must obey promptly."
May nodded again.
"Thank you," she said softly, feeling a mix of relief and nervousness. She stepped into the room and looked around.
Though modest, it was clean and warm, with a bed covered in soft blankets and a small table by the window. She set down her bundle of belongings and took a deep breath. This was the beginning of her new life, and she could not afford to be afraid. The first few days were difficult. May had to learn the routines of the household, which were strict and demanding. She helped in the kitchen, served meals to the household members, and attended to small chores throughout the mansion.
Every task required care and attention, and mistakes were not tolerated lightly. Some of the other women in the mansion looked at her with suspicion and jealousy, whispering behind her back.
May ignored them, focusing only on doing her best, knowing that every moment of diligence could bring her closer to her goal of protecting her daughter. Lord Wen, however, was not an easy man to please. He was stern and calculating, observing May with sharp eyes whenever she appeared before him. At first, he gave her only minor tasks, testing her patience, obedience, and willingness to serve without complaint. May performed each task carefully, never rushing, never complaining, even when the work was tiring or demeaning. She learned quickly that in this mansion every action mattered and even small mistakes could be noticed and criticized. Despite the challenges, May also began to notice the small kindnesses within the mansion. The youngest servants, children of the staff, would smile at her and sometimes sneak her small gifts like a piece of fruit or a flower from the garden. These moments reminded her of Leanne and gave her strength. May quietly helped these children whenever she could, offering them guidance, sharing her food, and listening to their stories. In return, they became her allies, sharing news of the mansion and helping her navigate the complex rules of the household. One evening, after a long day of chores, May was called to Lord Wen's study. She bowed as he looked up from a pile of documents, his face stern.
"May," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You have served faithfully, but I want to know more about your loyalty."
"Tell me why you are here. Why did you offer yourself as a concubine?"
May's hands trembled slightly, but she held his gaze. "My lord," she said, "I have come because I have a child who depends on me. I have no wealth, no status, and no one to protect me. But I will endure anything, obey every command, and work with all my strength because I want to secure a safe and better life for my daughter.
I ask nothing for myself, only for the hope of a future for her." Lord Wen leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Few women speak with such honesty and courage," he said thoughtfully. "Many would pretend or flatter to gain favor. You show neither fear nor deceit, only determination.
That is unusual." May bowed her head respectfully.
"I am grateful for your understanding, my lord. I will continue to serve faithfully and prove that your trust in me is not misplaced." The days turned into weeks, and May slowly adapted to the rhythms of the mansion. She learned which servants were trustworthy, which tasks required extra care, and how to navigate the tensions between the other women. Some were jealous of her presence, seeing her as a threat, while others grudgingly respected her dedication. May remained quiet, observing, learning, and patiently enduring.
She understood that in this household, knowledge and patience were as valuable as strength or beauty. During this time, May also discovered the softer side of Lord Wen, glimpses that few others saw. He was strict and demanding, but he respected honesty and diligence. On rare occasions, he would offer advice or a small word of encouragement. May treasured these moments, knowing that even a hint of trust from him could open doors to greater security and influence within the mansion. One morning, a crisis occurred in the kitchen. A tray of freshly cooked meals was spilled, and one of the senior maids scolded the younger servants harshly. May acted quickly, helping to salvage the food and calm the frightened children. She worked with patience, offering gentle guidance and support, and by the time Lord Wen arrived, the kitchen was in order. He watched silently as May handled the situation, noting her calmness under pressure, her ability to organize, and her compassion for the younger staff. Afterward, he spoke quietly.
"You did well, May," he said. "Not just in completing the task, but in how you treated those who are weaker or frightened. That is not something many possess. Remember this quality. It may serve you well in the days to come."
May felt a small warmth in her chest, a mix of relief and pride.
Even a few words of recognition from Lord Wen were precious. She bowed deeply. "Thank you, my lord. I will continue to serve faithfully and learn from every challenge." Despite these small successes, life remained difficult. There were moments of loneliness when May longed for her daughter, for the simplicity of her old village, and for the safety of familiar surroundings. But she reminded herself of why she was here. Every act of obedience, every moment of patience was a step toward securing a future for Lian. May's resolve hardened, and she grew stronger with each challenge she faced.
Over time, she began to understand the unspoken rules of the mansion. She learned when to speak and when to remain silent, when to show humility and when to demonstrate quiet strength. She began to form small bonds with those around her, earning the trust of servants and the cautious respect of some of the other women.
Slowly, she was no longer just an outsider. She was becoming a part of the mansion, her presence noticed, her efforts acknowledged, even if only quietly.
One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and purple, May stood near the window of her modest room, looking out at the gardens below. The mansion seemed less intimidating now, the halls less cold. She thought of Lian, imagining her daughter smiling and safe, and felt a renewed determination. She had entered this world with nothing but courage and love, and she would remain steadfast.
Whatever trials lay ahead, she would endure them. She would prove her loyalty, her strength, and her worth. Not for herself, but for her child.
In this mansion of power, wealth, and strict rules, May was learning that survival required more than obedience. It required patience, intelligence, and the quiet courage to endure hardships without losing one's heart.
Each day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove herself. And with every lesson learned, May grew stronger, more resilient, and more determined to create a better life for Lian. Though the journey was far from over, and though the mansion remained a place of strict rules and careful observation, May began to feel a glimmer of hope. She had survived the first trials, earned small signs of respect, and discovered her own inner strength. The path ahead was uncertain, but she knew she could endure it, step by step, with patience, courage, and love for her daughter as her guide.
And so, in the quiet of the mansion, surrounded by wealth and authority, May continued her journey. Every task she completed, every lesson she learned, and every challenge she faced was a step toward a brighter future. Though the road was long, she would not falter. For her daughter, for herself, and for the hope of a life less burdened by poverty and fear, May would continue to serve, to endure, and to rise. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. May had settled into the rhythm of life in Lord Wen's mansion, but it was not an easy existence. Each day brought new challenges, new rules to learn, and new expectations to meet. The mansion was a world of strict hierarchy, where every glance, every word, and every action mattered.
May quickly learned that even a small mistake could draw criticism, while a single act of loyalty or intelligence could earn recognition.
She worked tirelessly, never letting exhaustion or fear show in front of the others, though her body often ached from the long hours of chores and the demands of the household.
The other women in the mansion were a constant source of tension.
Some whispered behind her back, mocking her simple clothes and humble manner, while others tried to challenge her, testing her patience and skill. May remained quiet and cautious, observing them carefully.
She learned which rivalries were dangerous, which alliances were useful, and which actions could keep her safe. Though she spoke little, she noticed everything, the small gestures, the subtle expressions, the hidden intentions. Knowledge, she realized, was as important as obedience in this household. One afternoon, May was called to the gardens to assist with an event. Lord Wen was hosting a small gathering of his closest allies, and the mansion was buzzing with activity. May carried trays of fruit and tea, moving carefully among the guests, making sure not to spill or drop anything. A small slip could have been disastrous, but May remained focused, her hands steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. The other women glanced at her with thinly veiled resentment, yet May did not falter. Her mind was fixed on the task and on the knowledge that every success, no matter how small, brought her closer to the protection of her daughter. That evening, after the guests had left, Lord Wen summoned May to his study. The room was dimly lit, with shelves full of books and papers stacked neatly on the desk. He looked at her carefully, as though weighing her words before speaking. "You handled yourself well today," he said. "Many would have been flustered, or worse, careless. You were steady. Why do you think that is?"
May bowed deeply, her voice respectful yet firm.
"My lord, I have learned that life requires careful attention. I cannot afford mistakes because my goal is not only to serve you but also to protect my daughter's future. Every task, no matter how small, is an opportunity to prove my loyalty and reliability."
Lord Wen leaned back in his chair, considering her words. Few possess your patience and composure. Most people act hastily or speak without thinking.
"You seem to understand that strength is not only in action but also in observation and endurance. That quality will serve you well."
Though May appreciated the praise, she knew that words alone were not enough. Life in the mansion would continue to test her in ways she could not yet predict.
One evening, a serious challenge arose. A fire broke out in the kitchen, caused by a dropped lamp.
Flames spread quickly, and smoke filled the air. The other servants panicked, running in all directions, unsure of how to control the situation. May's heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm.
She shouted instructions, helping to move children and fragile items to safety, while guiding the others to extinguish the fire. By the time Lord Wen arrived, the fire was under control and the kitchen had suffered only minor damage. He observed May quietly as she directed the others, her calm voice and decisive actions standing out in the chaos. Afterward, he spoke to her in private. "You did more than survive the fire. You led and protected others when they could not. That is true strength, May. Few would have acted as you did."
May bowed, her cheeks flushed with a mix of pride and relief.
"I only did what I could, my lord. I would do anything to keep this household and its people safe. I am grateful for your guidance and trust, but life in the mansion was not just about physical challenges."
Emotional trials weighed heavily on May as well. The loneliness she felt for Lian was constant. Letters and small gifts were rare, and the separation often left her feeling hollow. Each day she would close her eyes and imagine her daughter's smile, imagining the warmth of her tiny hands. Those thoughts were bittersweet. They gave her strength but also reminded her of what she had sacrificed. May endured the longing quietly, knowing that her suffering was temporary and her purpose enduring. The rivalry among the women also escalated. One of the senior concubines, a woman named Hua, began to see May as a threat.
Hua was clever, ambitious, and accustomed to attention.
She tried subtle ways to undermine May, assigning her more difficult tasks and spreading rumors to make her seem careless. May faced these trials with patience, never responding with anger or confrontation. Instead, she focused on her work, observing Hua's actions and learning the dynamics of the household. Gradually, she began to see patterns in the jealousy and manipulation, and she adapted, finding ways to complete tasks efficiently while maintaining her dignity. May also discovered the quiet joys of small accomplishments. One morning, she found a wounded bird in the garden, its wing broken. She carefully tended to it, feeding it and cleaning its injury. The bird slowly regained strength and eventually flew away.
Though simple, this act reminded May of the importance of compassion and patience. It was a small victory, a moment of peace amid the relentless demands of the mansion.
These moments helped her endure, showing her that strength was not only measured in survival, but also in kindness and resilience. Lord Wen continued to test May in different ways. One day, he asked her to manage a complex task, overseeing the preparation of a banquet for visiting officials. The task required coordination of servants, precise timing of food preparation, and attention to the smallest details. May approached the challenge calmly, organizing the staff and anticipating potential problems. When the banquet began, everything proceeded smoothly. The guests praised the food and the arrangements, while Lord Wen observed quietly, a hint of approval in his eyes. "You have a rare skill, May," he said afterward.
"Many would crumble under pressure, yet you remain composed and focused. That is a quality few possess. Remember this: control over oneself often leads to influence over circumstances." May absorbed his words, understanding that her endurance and careful observation were slowly building her place in the mansion.
She was learning that strength and intelligence could open doors, even in a world where appearances and status often ruled. Every challenge, every small act of service, was a step toward creating a secure life for her daughter. Yet despite these successes, May never lost sight of the risks. One mistake, one moment of weakness could undo all her progress. She remained vigilant, attentive, and patient, observing the subtle dynamics of the household and adapting to the changing moods of the people around her. Every smile she gave, every gesture of kindness, and every act of loyalty was calculated not for praise, but for survival and progress. One particularly cold evening, May sat by the fire in her modest room, mending a torn piece of cloth. The other women had retired for the night, and the mansion was quiet. She thought of Lian, imagining her daughter asleep in the small village home. May whispered softly,
"I will endure anything, my child."
"I will not fail you. One day we will be together again, and life will be different. Stronger, safer, better." Her resolve never wavered, even in the face of hardship.
She understood that her endurance, patience, and intelligence were her greatest weapons. In this mansion of wealth and power, she had to navigate both seen and unseen challenges. Some trials tested her physically, others emotionally, and some socially. Yet May faced each with the same determination: to survive, to protect her daughter, and to prove that strength and loyalty could create a place for her even in the most demanding of households. Over time, May's presence began to change the perception of those around her. Some servants began to seek her advice, trusting her guidance and appreciating her fairness. Even Hua, the senior concubine who had once tried to undermine her, found that May's calm and diligent nature could not be easily shaken or dismissed. Slowly, respect replaced envy, though quietly and cautiously. May had learned that in the mansion, influence grew not from confrontation, but from quiet endurance, careful observation, and unwavering loyalty. And so, May continued her journey. Each day she faced new challenges: physical labor, complex tasks, social rivalries, but she endured them all.
Every act of service, every moment of patience, and every instance of careful observation brought her closer to her goal, the protection and future of her daughter. Though the road was long and full of trials, May's courage, intelligence, and love for Lian guided her.
Death to the turncoat! She had entered the mansion with nothing but determination, and she would remain steadfast, proving that even the humblest person could survive, influence, and endure in a world of wealth and power. Through fire, rivalry, and loneliness, May had learned her own strength.
She knew that life in the mansion would continue to test her, but she also understood that her endurance and patience were building a foundation for the life she'd dreamed of for her daughter. In a place filled with rules, hierarchy, and constant scrutiny, May had discovered a truth: Survival was not only about obedience, it was about courage, intelligence, and the quiet strength to endure. And with that understanding, May faced each day with renewed determination, ready to meet the next trial no matter how difficult, knowing that her efforts were shaping a future where she and Leanne might one day live with safety, respect, and hope. Life in the mansion had grown more complex for May, but with each challenge she had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. The initial fear and uncertainty that had filled her first days were slowly replaced by careful observation, patience, and a quiet determination. She had learned how to navigate the unspoken rules of the household, and her efforts had not gone unnoticed. Even Lord Wen, who had once seen her as a simple, desperate woman, began to acknowledge her intelligence and calm strength, though subtly and without outward praise. One morning, the household was thrown into sudden turmoil. A business rival of Lord Wen had arrived in town with intentions to discredit him and seize some of his property. Rumors had spread quickly, and the mansion was tense. Servants whispered nervously in the hallways, and the other concubines moved through the corridors with anxiety, uncertain of how the situation would unfold. May observed quietly, her heart racing not out of fear but out of awareness that this crisis could shape her place in the mansion. She knew that how she responded now could either secure her future or expose her to danger. Lord Wen summoned his trusted aides to discuss the situation. The tension in the room was palpable. May, who had been attending to minor household duties nearby, quietly listened to the conversation, observing details and learning the full scope of the threat. She noticed small clues, how the servants reacted, which allies seemed anxious, and which pieces of information had been overlooked. In that moment, she realized that her careful attention could be of value. Later that day, May approached Lord Wen respectfully. "My lord," she said softly, "I have observed the situation carefully, and there may be ways to address this problem.
Perhaps there are actions that can prevent the rival from gaining influence before they can act against you. I am willing to assist in any way you deem appropriate."
Lord Wen looked at her with sharp curiosity. Few women in the mansion had ever approached him with suggestions or insights, and even fewer had done so with both humility and confidence.
"You are bold to speak, May," he said, his tone measured. "Why should I trust your judgment in matters beyond household chores?" May bowed slightly. "I understand, my lord."
"I do not seek praise, only the opportunity to serve faithfully. I have observed the details and patterns here for many months, and I believe my insights may help you avoid harm.
I am willing to do whatever is necessary to protect your household."
Lord Wen paused, studying her carefully. Finally, he nodded. "Very well."
"Share your thoughts." May explained her observations calmly and clearly. She pointed out overlooked details, suggested actions to strengthen alliances, and identified potential weaknesses in the rivals' plans. She spoke with precision, her voice steady, her reasoning logical. As she spoke, Lord Wen listened intently, occasionally asking questions that May answered with careful consideration. By the end of the discussion, a plan had begun to form, incorporating her insights into the strategy to protect his property and reputation. Over the following days, May worked closely with trusted aides, helping to carry out the plan with care. She coordinated messages, observed the rivals' movements, and ensured that the household remained organized and prepared. Her dedication and intelligence impressed even the most skeptical of the staff. Slowly, her influence began to grow. People who had once doubted her capabilities now sought her advice and assistance. May remained humble, never letting the growing respect distract her from her ultimate goal, securing her daughter's future.
The day came when the rival attempted to publicly challenge Lord Wen.
The confrontation took place at the town hall with influential officials present. May's careful planning and the preparation of Lord Wen's household ensured that he was ready for every question and accusation. The rival's efforts faltered, and Lord Wen emerged unscathed, his reputation intact. When he returned to the mansion that evening, he acknowledged May privately.
"You acted with insight and courage," he said, his voice calm but firm.
Your contributions today were invaluable. Few would have been able to see the details as clearly or act so effectively. You are proving that loyalty and intelligence are as important as obedience. May bowed deeply. I am grateful for your trust, my lord. I only wish to serve faithfully and continue to prove that I am worthy of your confidence. This turning point changed the dynamics of the mansion.
May was no longer seen merely as a humble concubine or a simple servant. Her intelligence, patience, and loyalty had earned her a place of quiet respect. Some of the other women began to regard her with genuine admiration, though carefully disguised. Even Hua, the senior concubine who had once sought to undermine her, now recognized that May's presence could not be ignored or dismissed.
Despite this growing respect, May remained cautious. She knew that influence in the mansion was fragile, and that jealousy or misunderstanding could undo everything she had built.
She continued to observe, listen, and act with precision, ensuring that her actions reflected both loyalty and integrity. Every decision was carefully considered, every task executed with diligence.
She understood that in this world of wealth and power, patience and intelligence were as critical as courage and obedience. In the weeks that followed, May also began to take small steps to ensure her daughter's future. She sent discreet letters and small gifts to Liane, maintaining a connection despite the distance. She carefully saved any extra provisions she could spare, preparing for the day when her daughter might join her in the mansion. These efforts gave May renewed determination, reminding her that every challenge she endured was for a purpose greater than herself.
As she continued to navigate the complexities of the household, May discovered another truth. Kindness and compassion could be as powerful as intelligence and strategy. She helped young servants learn their tasks, comforted those who were frightened, and quietly intervened when others were treated unfairly. Her actions created allies and strengthened her position within the mansion. People began to trust her, not out of fear, but because they recognized her fairness, patience, and dedication. One evening, as she walked through the garden, May noticed Lord Wen observing her quietly. He did not speak immediately, but his gaze held a mixture of respect and curiosity. May met his eyes and nodded respectfully. He gestured for her to join him. "You have changed the way I see you," he said after a moment.
Not many would have the courage to step forward during a crisis, and the wisdom to act effectively. You are proving that loyalty and intelligence together create true strength. Remember this, May. Strength alone is not enough. It must be paired with understanding and patience.
May bowed deeply, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and humility.
Thank you, my lord. I will continue to serve faithfully and learn from every challenge for the sake of this household and for my daughter.
Life continued with its mixture of trials and small victories. May faced ongoing challenges, tasks that tested her endurance, rivalries that tested her patience, and moments of loneliness that tested her heart. Yet, each challenge was met with determination, intelligence, and careful observation. She had learned that survival in this mansion required more than obedience. It required courage, wisdom, compassion, and the ability to endure hardship with grace. Through it all, May's bond with Lord Wen grew, though subtly. He began to rely on her judgment in small matters, seeking her advice quietly and observing her actions with attention. While the other concubines remained cautious and competitive, May's careful and loyal behavior created a place for her that was respected and valued. Her influence, once invisible, began to take shape, and yet May never lost sight of her ultimate goal, her daughter's safety and future.
Every decision, every action, and every challenge she faced was guided by the hope of reuniting with Liane.
She knew that patience, courage, and intelligence would pave the way for the life she wished to build, a life where her daughter could be safe, respected, and free from the hardships that had defined May's own early life. As the sun set over the mansion one quiet evening, May stood in the garden, feeling the soft breeze against her face. The flowers swayed gently, and the world beyond the walls seemed calm and distant. She thought of the long road she had traveled, from a desperate woman pleading for a chance, to someone whose insight and loyalty had earned respect and influence. She knew the journey was far from over, but for the first time, she felt a sense of accomplishment and hope.
May had endured trials that would have defeated many. She had faced jealousy, hardship, fear, and uncertainty, yet she had remained steadfast. Her courage, intelligence, and compassion had begun to shape her destiny. And though the mansion remained a place of rules, hierarchy, and subtle challenges, May understood that she was no longer powerless. She had begun to claim her place, not through force but through quiet strength, careful observation, and unwavering loyalty. In the quiet of the garden, May whispered to herself, "I will endure anything. I will remain patient and strong. One day my daughter will be here, safe and happy, and we will be free from fear and hardship. I will not fail her. I will not fail myself." And with that promise, May stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold, knowing that her strength, intelligence, and unwavering love had begun to change her life forever. Time passed in the mansion, and May had become a quiet but important presence. She moved through the hallways with grace and diligence, carrying out her tasks with care and earning the respect of both servants and concubines. Her intelligence, patience, and compassion had not only helped Lord Wen navigate challenges, but it also transformed her own life. Yet, despite the growing respect she had earned within the mansion, May never forgot the reason she had come: her daughter, Lian. Every day she longed to see her child's face, to hold her close, and to finally give her the safety and comfort she had always dreamed of. One morning a letter arrived for May through a discreet messenger. She carefully unfolded it, and her eyes filled with tears as she read the familiar handwriting. It was from Lian, and it described her life in the village, her longing to see her mother, and the small joys she found in daily life despite hardships. May held the letter close to her heart, feeling both relief and a renewed determination. The time had come to reunite with her daughter and secure the future they both deserved. May approached Lord Wen with humility and respect. "My lord," she said softly, "I am grateful for the trust you have shown me and the opportunities you have allowed me. I have a request. I wish to bring my daughter here so she may live safely and learn an environment where she is protected. I will continue to serve faithfully in every way you require, but I hope you will allow her to be with me." Lord Wen studied her carefully, his sharp eyes reflecting both consideration and curiosity. "You are asking a significant favor," he said. "Few would dare to request such a thing. Why should I grant it?" May lowered her gaze, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "My lord, everything I have done in this household has been to protect and serve. I have proven my loyalty, my diligence, and my intelligence. My daughter is all I have in this world, and bringing her here will not interfere with my duties. It will give me strength, and I promise that she will respect the rules of this household. Please, allow me to care for her here, so she may live safely and grow in a life free from fear and hardship." Lord Wen was silent for a long moment. May held her breath, feeling the weight of anticipation and hope. Finally, he spoke. "Very well, May. I will allow it. Bring your daughter here, but understand, she must respect the rules of this household, and your responsibilities remain unchanged." "Do you accept these conditions?" "Yes, my lord," May said, bowing deeply, her heart swelling with relief and gratitude. "I understand, and I will obey fully." With Lord Wen's permission, May arranged for Lian to travel to the mansion. The day of their reunion was filled with emotion. May waited in the garden, pacing nervously as she watched the path leading to the main gates. When Lian finally appeared, her small figure walking timidly but with hopeful eyes, May ran forward, tears streaming down her face. She scooped her daughter into her arms, holding her tightly as though she would never let go. Lian clung to her mother, burying her face against May's chest, and the years of separation melted away in that single embrace. Once Lian had settled into the mansion, May's life took on new meaning. She continued to serve Lord Wen faithfully, but now every action, every decision, was guided by the thought of her daughter's safety and happiness. She helped Lian adjust to life in the mansion, teaching her manners, observing her growth, and encouraging her learning. May also ensured that Lian remained protected from the jealous whispers and subtle rivalries that existed among the other women in the household. Her presence gave Lien security, and her guidance helped the young girl thrive in an environment that had once seemed daunting.
Lord Wen observed the relationship between mother and daughter quietly. He noted the care and intelligence with which Mei guided Lian, and he began to treat both of them with a gentle respect. He assigned Mei tasks that suited her skills, trusting her judgment more than ever, and the household gradually adjusted to the presence of both mother and daughter. Even Hua, the senior concubine, could not help but recognize Mei's unwavering dedication and the bond she shared with Lian.
Though subtle, a grudging respect replaced jealousy, and Mei's position in the household grew stronger. Life was not without challenges, however.
The mansion still demanded diligence, attention to detail, and careful observation. Tasks remained complex, rivalries occasionally flared, and Mei had to navigate the delicate social dynamics of the household with wisdom. Yet, now she faced these challenges with a renewed sense of purpose. Every trial was endured not only for her own survival, but for the well-being and future of her daughter.
Mei's resolve was unshakable. Over time, Lian grew accustomed to life in the mansion.
She studied under the guidance of tutors and observed the workings of the household, learning lessons in patience, diligence, and compassion from her mother. Mei encouraged her to be kind to others, to observe carefully, and to face challenges with courage. She knew that one day her daughter would need these skills to navigate life, whether inside the mansion or beyond its walls. The love between mother and daughter became a source of strength for both, a quiet force that held them together even in difficult times. Lord Wen began to involve Mei more directly in the management of certain household matters. Her advice was sought on practical decisions, from organizing staff duties to ensuring the smooth running of events and tasks. Her insights were valued because they were thoughtful, precise, and always guided by fairness.
Mei had earned the respect of those around her, not through arrogance or force, but through patience, diligence, and unwavering loyalty.
One evening, after a particularly busy day, Mei stood in the garden with Lian, watching the sun set over the mansion grounds.
The sky was painted with soft shades of orange and purple, and the scent of flowers filled the air. Lian rested her small hand in her mother's, looking up at her with trust and admiration. Mei felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that had begun with desperation and fear had brought her here, to a place where she could protect her child, influence her surroundings, and create a future filled with hope. "Mother," Lian said softly, "thank you for bringing me here. I feel safe and happy." Mei smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face.
My child, you are my heart. Everything I have done, everything I endure, is for you. You will always be safe, and one day we will have a life full of happiness and peace.
Even as they embraced, Mei knew that life would continue to present challenges. The mansion, though safer than the village, was still a place of hierarchy, expectations, and scrutiny. But she no longer faced these trials alone. She had earned respect, she had gained influence, and most importantly, she had her daughter by her side. Mei's endurance, intelligence, and compassion had transformed not only her own life, but also the future of the child she loved more than anything in the world. Months passed, and the bond between mother and daughter grew stronger. Lian flourished under Mei's care, and Mei's efforts in the mansion earned her a quiet but firm place of respect. She had survived the hardships of the early days, navigated the complex social dynamics, and proven her loyalty and intelligence.
The household had changed because of her presence. Its members had learned to respect patience, diligence, and kindness alongside strength and authority. One morning, Lord Wen called Mei to his study.
The air was calm, and the sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the polished wooden floor. He looked at Mei with a rare softness in his eyes.
Mei, he said, you have proven yourself in ways few could imagine. Your loyalty, intelligence, and courage have strengthened this household, and your guidance has shaped the well-being of those within it. I trust you, and I recognize the bond you share with your daughter. You have changed this place for the better.
Mei bowed deeply, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, my lord.
I have only done what I must to protect my daughter and serve faithfully. I am grateful for your trust and understanding.
As Mei left the study, she felt a sense of completeness.
She had endured trials, overcome jealousy and hardship, and earned respect and influence in a world that had once seemed impossible to navigate.
Most importantly, she had achieved her greatest goal. Her daughter was safe, happy, and growing under her care. The mansion, once intimidating and foreign, had become a place of stability, learning, and cautious peace. In the quiet of the evening, May and Liane sat in the garden together, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. May whispered softly, "No matter what challenges come, we will face them together."
We have endured so much, and we will continue to grow stronger. This is our life now, full of hope, safety, and love.
Liane smiled and rested her head on her mother's shoulder, feeling the warmth and security that only a mother's love could provide. May had transformed her despair into strength, her fear into courage, and her loneliness into a guiding purpose.